I'm honored to be joined by Senator Raphael Warnock, Democrat of Georgia. Senator, thank you for joining us this evening. Let me start.
Good evening.
Let me start with, as we wait for the president, I have to ask you about remarks made by his opponent, former President Trump, at a rally in Ohio last night. The presumptive Republican nominee warned there would be a, quote, bloodbath, unquote, if he loses the election. Now, he claimed he was talking about the car industry, but repeated the words several times. He also said some migrants aren't people. At another point, he called them animals. What's your reaction to these comments, Senator?
Well, you know, Maya Angelou said, when someone shows you who they are, believe them the first time. Well, Donald Trump has shown us who he is time and time and time again. And we ought to take him seriously. This is the insurrectionist president. This is the man who egged on the most violent insurrection on our capital, or attack on our capital, since the War of 1812. And that violence has now metastasized in this kind of continual attack on the dignity and integrity of our democracy through voter suppression laws, which I'm engaged in fighting, and so are you in so many ways. And so this election is a binary choice, and we're just being reminded time and time again about how much is at stake. Nothing less than the future of our republic.
Now, in your state of Georgia, let's go to your home state. On Friday, a judge ruled that Fulton County DA Fani Willis can continue to lead the election interference case against former President Trump, although she did have to accept the resignation of a special prosecutor with whom she'd had a romantic relationship. Many of us have questioned whether Willis has been subjected to such personal scrutiny in this case, in part because she's a successful black woman. Are you confident this case will go on and justice will be served? And are you hopeful we'll see a trial before the election?
Well, first of all, we certainly have seen Donald Trump attack this black woman. And again, we're not surprised when we see Donald Trump do that, because that's who he is. But we're watching our judicial process play out. And right here in Georgia, I'm afraid that there are some political actors who have tried to put their hand on the scale I'm not going to pile on. We're watching the process move forward. She will be able to try her case. And I think it's important that we center what this case is about. It's about a sitting president of the United States calling down to the state of Georgia, basically threatening the officials here and saying, I need about 11,000 votes. I need someone to explain to me what else could he mean other than that they should be engaged in some kind of fraud. He's on tape saying these things. And so I think it's important to center that, to center the ways in which he created an environment that led to intimidation and death threats for Shay Moss and Ruby Freeman, these folks who are just volunteering, folks who keep the wheel of democracy turning, and their lives were literally turned upside down because of the awfulness of Donald Trump. He deserves his day in court, and the people of Georgia and the people of our country will get their chance to ensure that he does not return to the Oval Office.
Before we move completely off Trump, and I want to get to voting rights because I know you bringing a bill back, but I have to ask you about his hand-picked candidate for governor of North Carolina, Lieutenant Governor Mark Robinson. Robinson has gone on record of bigoted comments toward Jewish people, women, members of the LGBTQ community. Trump has called him, quote, Martin Luther King on steroids. Now, Senator, you are the senior pastor of Dr. King's church, Ebenezer Baptist Church in Atlanta, one of our prominent churches. You even had me preach there a couple of times. What do you have to say about comments like that?
Well, I don't know if he's on steroids or something else, but he doesn't know Martin Luther King Jr. Dr. King said, we're tied in a single garment of destiny, caught up in an inescapable network of mutuality. whatever affects one directly affects all indirectly. He reminded us of the ways in which we need one another. This man hates everybody. And he, like the person who is endorsing him, is not worthy of the office he seeks.
Now, I've known you for years. You've always been involved in civil and human rights causes. You always tell people the first time you were arrested for a civil rights cause, civil disobedience, was a rally I organized in '99 here in New York. So I'm sure you're following humanitarian crisis all over the country and all over the world. How do you look at the humanitarian crisis in Haiti? In my capacity as head of National Action Network, I've called for the Biden administration to hold an emergency meeting with myself and National Urban League President Marc Morial and others to discuss the situation. I met with Haitian asylum seekers at the U.S.-Mexico border back in 2021 when the Border Patrol agents were seen chasing them on horseback. And it's heartbreaking to hear stories about people feeling political violence once again being turned away. What can Congress do to help?
I'm deeply concerned about our sisters and brothers down in Haiti. And as you point out, I'm the pastor of Ebenezer Church, where Martin Luther King Jr. served. And when I see human suffering wherever it is, it moves my heart. But Haiti is in our own hemisphere. I mean, Haiti, in a manner of speaking, is a stone's throw from our front door. And here is a small republic, very poor country in our own hemisphere with an incredible history. The slaves in Haiti rose up and they took over the government. And in a real sense, it seems to me they've been paying for that ever since. And we have an obligation to make sure that the folks who are in Haiti know that they have the support of the United States of America. I think it is in our vested interest. I'm concerned about the gangs, the anarchy that's happening right now at our doorsteps. And I am actively exploring, as a member of Congress, everything that I can do to respond to that situation there. By the way, the first time I ever left the country, Reverend Sharpton, I grew up poor kid in public housing, and I was in graduate school and seminary the first time I left the country. And I was telling friends earlier today that, ironically, the first time I left the country, I went to Haiti with an organization that was observing the situation there at the time when they were dealing with political strife. And it has remained in my heart ever since. And I want to see how I can do whatever I can to uphold the dignity of the people of Haiti and help them with a pathway that leads to peace and prosperity.
Now, I want to ask you about two Senate situations. One, you've reintroduced the John Lewis bill around voting rights. And the Senate will now have to also consider a bill calling for the forced sale or ban the social media platform TikTok after it passed the House last week. President Biden has said he would sign the legislation. Where are we with the voting rights bill, and where do you stand on the TikTok issue?
Well, let me just say on the latter issue, my record is very clear with making sure that we do everything we can to check the ambitions of the Chinese Communist Party. And so I think it's important, even as we debate these issues, and I'm reviewing the legislation that was just passed in the House, that we center, it's important that we center what this is about. It's about national security. And I'm aware of that, and we'll see where we end up in terms of the legislation. I do have to tell you that I am hearing from the 13-year-olds in my church and my constituents all across Georgia. And I don't want to say too much about this because I don't want to get in trouble with my 7-year-old at home. But in the meantime, we do need to take this very seriously. I'm reviewing the legislation. We'll see where we land. I'm very focused always on voting rights, because for me, voting rights and democracy, this is not just one issue alongside other issues. It is the framework in which we get to fight for everything that we care about. I have the honor of serving not only in the pulpit where Martin King served, but where John Lewis worshiped. I was his pastor. And I was very proud last week to reintroduce the John Lewis Voting Rights Advancement Act. It is the renewal of the voting rights law that was first passed in 1965, and it used to be reauthorized without a hitch in a bipartisan manner. In fact, when it was last reauthorized, the year was 2006, it passed the Senate 98-0, and a Republican president who came to John Lewis's funeral, by the way, George W. Bush, was president. But sadly, we have entered into an era in which the very violence that we saw on January 6, 2021, has metastasized throughout the body politic in all of these voter suppression laws. The Supreme Court did us a grave disservice when they gutted the voting rights law in 2013. And the very places where historically we've seen these kinds of assaults on voting rights, including Georgia, are the places where we're seeing it right now. I won't rest until we pass the John Lewis Voting Rights Advancement Act and the Freedom to Vote Act.
And I can say I remember in 2008 on the election night, we asked you and you let us have a watch night to watch the election at Ebenezer. And you and I sat with Martin Luther King's sister,
Yes,
who's since deceased. And John Lewis was there, and he would always look at you and say, "That's my pastor, Reverend Sharpton." And he was very proud of you, and you laid him to rest with the dignity he deserved. Thank you for being with us, Georgia Senator Raphael Warnock.
If it makes you feel any better, I have already put EVAC on alert. He's ready to go if it comes to that. General, I can assure you.
Hey, General, let me into the war room to see you, so I had to hack my way onto this frequency.
This better be critical, Wheelie.
So, come on, what is it now, please? Okay, couple of things. I wanted low on the double. I was thinking about taking a couple of months sick leave, maybe starting today. And, oh yeah, I intercepted a transmission from Megatron.
Then send it through.
Yes, sir, right away, sir. And so I'll assume that we're good on the other stuff.
This is your last warning, insects. Relinquish what remains of the Allspark.
So who's the insect? You? What? Who's the insect?
Protect you. They were defeated on our world, and we will defeat them here.
The Megatron.
This was just a diversion. Security, may bring up. Rabbit, she's already inside. Deeds! Give me an update on that reserve. What's readiness? What was his name? What was it?
Evac, sir.
Right, evac.
She's right in front.
We're facing a heavy, sustained attack. They appear to be after the Allspark craft. General!